Prologue, Whispers of Prophecy. From the Sanguine Codex, entry 274. Blood remembers what flesh forgets. In my centuries of study, I have observed crystalline structures forming in samples taken during moments of profound supernatural significance. These patterns defy both natural law and magical understanding, as if the very molecules themselves attempt to write prophecies in a language we have yet to decipher. Most intriguing are the rare instances where mortal blood exhibits similar formations, suggesting some humans carry echoes of powers we thought lost to time. Nikolai Devereux, 1750. The ancient chamber breathed with the weight of centuries, its stone walls weeping with the damp of forgotten ages. Deep beneath a crumbling European castle, time itself seemed to pause in this sacred space. Moonlight filtered through a jagged crack in the vaulted ceiling, a crack that appeared different to each observer, some seeing a serpent's path, others a prophecy written in the stone itself. The pale beam seemed to hesitate before touching the chamber floor, as if aware of the unhallowed rituals it would soon witness. The beam illuminated particles of dust that danced like lost souls in the stagnant air, heavy with the metallic tang of spilled blood and the musty perfume of decay. 7 hooded figures stood in a perfect circle, their robes the color of midnight, faces obscured by shadows deeper than any natural darkness could provide. Their very presence seemed to bend the light around them, as if reality itself shied away from their otherworldly nature. At the center of their formation, a stone altar rose from the rough-hewn floor like an ancient tooth jutting from Earth's dark gums, its surface stained with the oxidized burgundy of countless rituals. The tallest among them stepped forward, movements so fluid they appeared to defy gravity. Pale hands, marked with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. 1. Emerged from voluminous sleeves. They cradled an object wrapped in what appeared to be human skin. Skin that retained a sickly translucence, its surface traced with barely visible veins that still seemed to pulse with phantom life. Brothers and sisters of the night, the figure intoned, voice carrying the weight of millennia, resonating with harmonics that made the other figure's fangs ache. The time of the Crimson Eclipse draws near. A shiver passed through the assembled crowd, not of cold, for such mortal sensations had long since ceased to trouble them, but of primal recognition. Something ancient stirred in response to those words, something that had slumbered in their immortal blood since the first of their kind walked the earth. The leader began to unwrap the parcel with reverent slowness, revealing a tome so ancient that its pages threatened to crumble at the slightest touch. As the last fold of skin fell away, the book seemed to exhale, releasing an aroma of age and power that made the torches flicker and dance. The skin wrapping, still warm to the touch, bore the last memories of its donor, a willing sacrifice whose final thoughts had been transcribed into their flesh, becoming part of the ritual itself. These memories flickered across the surface like heat lightning, visible only to those who knew where to look. The leader's fingers, long and graceful as spiders' legs, traced the symbols on the cover. The engravings began to glow where they touched with a deep, crimson light that pulsed like a dying heart. The book fell open of its own accord, its pages turning by unseen hands until they settled on a text writhed like living things across the yellowed vellum. The chanting began, a sound that existed somewhere between speech and song, words in a language that predated civilization itself. As the voices rose, the very air seemed to thicken, becoming almost liquid with power. The text on the pages began to glow, each letter burning with the same crimson light that now leaked from the eyes of the assembled figures. When the moon bleeds red, and the stars align, the one with the blood of life and death shall rise. Ancient bonds will shatter, the veil will thin, too, and the old one shall walk among us once again. Through the Crimson Eclipse, powers long dormant wake, in the mixing of bloodlines, a new order to make. She who bridges worlds shall hold the key, to damn or save all of immortality. As the final word faded, a gust of wind, impossible in this sealed underground chamber, extinguished every torch simultaneously. The darkness that followed was absolute, a void that seemed to devour even the memory of light. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats, for those who still possessed hearts to beat. Then came the scream. It began as something human but transformed into something else entirely. A sound that contained both ecstasy and agony, creation and destruction. It cut off abruptly, replaced by the wet thud of a body striking stone. When the light returned, sputtering and weak, the chamber had changed. The ancient tome lay open on the altar, its pages now blank save for a single line written in fresh blood that still dripped onto the stone below. It begins. One of the hooded figures lay crumpled on the floor, their body desiccated as if they had been dead for centuries rather than moments. The others stood frozen, faces finally revealed, each bearing an expression of terror mixed with dark anticipation. Their fangs gleamed in the restored torchlight, extended involuntarily in response to the power that still charged the air. In the distance, beyond the ancient stones and earth, a wolf howled at a moon that was just beginning to blush red. The sound carried with it a note of warning, or perhaps welcome, for the world was about to change. The time of the Crimson Eclipse approached, and with it, a prophecy centuries in the making would finally unfold. 3. Above ground, in a city that never truly slept, A young woman named Eve Blackwood jolted awake from a dream she couldn't quite remember, the taste of blood lingering on her tongue. In her hand, she clutched a small object she had no memory of holding. A piece of ancient parchment covered in writing that seemed to shift and change before her eyes. As she tried to focus on the text, it crumbled to dust, leaving behind only a faint mark on her palm, a symbol identical to one being carved by unseen hands into the chamber floor far below. The ritual had chosen its vessel, though none yet knew the true price of prophecy.